Our culture approaches marriage as a give and take. This is blatantly seen in subtle, unwritten agreements before marriage, that if you don't hold up to your end of the bargain, then I have no intentions of holding up to my end of the bargain. In some cases, marriages are even preceded by a prenuptial agreement laying down terms and conditions in the event of non-compliance. But God calls gospel-centered marriages to be marked by a give and give. It means that regardless of what our spouse does or how they react to a certain situation, we are called to selflessly love and serve them just the same. Husbands, no matter how frustrated we get with our wives, we are called to love and serve her anyway. Wives, no matter how frustrated you get with your husbands, you are called to love and serve him anyways, at all times. This is at the depth of a gospel-centered marriage. In fact, it's God's standard set for us in Scripture. We all pretty much know this. But if we are married, we also know something else very well. We know that we know that we know there's no way we can perfectly go on loving our spouse regardless of their treatment towards us. We know it for ourselves better than anyone needing to point it to us. This failure to offer the covenantal love that Scripture speaks of generally leads to bitterness and resentment, but more specific to marriages, people are tempted to punish their spouse, withhold love as a result of bitterness, and as a result of covenantal failure, all of this leads to hopelessness and we become disheartened. This is a true fear. We begin to realize and question ourselves, what's the point of a covenant-keeping love? But it doesn't need to lead to hopelessness. The big question we need to ask ourselves is, how is the gospel relevant to us in this situation? Appropriately understood and applied, the gospel addresses this beautifully. Because the way we received the gospel, because the way we received Christ into our hearts is by acknowledging our failure to meet God's standard, and because Scripture reveals that marriage is a glimpse of the gospel, it's to point to the gospel, friends, the light of God's grace shines so bright in the moments of our covenant failure to our spouses. The point of a covenant-keeping love is not to prove or to justify that we are able to do it in our own strength. The point of covenant-keeping love is to see that Jesus has already done it perfectly. And it's reflected in His love for the church, His bride. The point of covenant love is that Jesus has already done it perfectly, but not just that, He has done it in our place as a substitute. Therefore, He is able to lead us and cover us in His righteousness. So now, as we believe this, no longer does the failure to meet the standard of Scripture crush us in guilt. Instead, we begin to appreciate Jesus for fulfilling it perfectly. If you are a suffering husband or a suffering wife, or a very nervous and confused single waiting for marriage, my earnest desire is if we would only believe this powerful, compelling, dynamic gospel truth daily. In doing that, our hearts begin to soften. The emotion that follows is one of humility and gratitude. Among many things, that's what the gospel does to us. It makes us humble and it makes us grateful. And because of this grace that has been extended to us through the gospel, which leads to humility and gratitude, now you and I are in a better position to offer the same grace to our spouses. I'd like to just close with a quote of John Piper this time. He says, The way husbands and wives showcase covenant love is by resting in the experience of God's grace and bending it out from a vertical experience with God into a horizontal experience with their spouses. God bless you.